Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. Here's something for the Fed nerds. The central bank's eagerly awaited, by some of us, 50 basis point rate cut and its impact on the presidential race. Does it have any? Economist and professor Jason Furman.
The cut was 3 steps progress. Inflation's come down a lot, but 1 step moving in the opposite direction in the job market with the unemployment rate up.
And a new shark in the tank. Shark Tank's newest investor, Daniel Lubetzky, started Kind Snacks. Now he's ready to share his wisdom with other founders and with us.
In my experience, the mistakes, as long as you're self-reflective, are as important as the successes because they teach you how to calibrate and pivot.
But first, a CEO shakeup at Nike, a laissez-faire take on back to the office at Starbucks, and Microsoft is doing what? AI sure requires a lot of power.
If you are behind the nuclear movement and you want to get nuclear restarted in this country, what PR person signed off on saying, yeah, let's start with 3 Mile Island?
Without changing the name.
It's Friday, September 20th. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernen. Andrew is on assignment this morning.
Name from the past, Constellation Energy, announcing plans to restart the nuclear power plant at Three Mile Island.
What?
Let's get it going. Fire that baby up. Microsoft is signing a 20-year deal to purchase the power output from that venture. The plant's expected to be ready for service in 2028. See the shares right now?
Wow.
Not moving on that, but
well, the Constellation shares are.
Yeah. 3 Mile Island was the site of the biggest nuclear accident in the history of the U.S. nuclear power generation. A partial meltdown of the reactor led to radioactive gases and iodine being released into the air back in the March of way back in 1979.
Man, if you are behind the nuclear movement and you want to get nuclear restarted in this country, what PR person signed off on saying, yeah, let's start with 3 Mile Island?
Without changing the name. That'd be a better name. 2 Mile Island, think people would still know. Yeah.
I think they might still know. But look, I understand the need for nuclear in this country, but wow.
Nike CEO John Donahoe is stepping down. He took over as CEO back in January of 2020. In a statement, he said it became clear now was the time to make a leadership change. He's going to stay on as an advisor until the end of January, and company veteran Elliott Hill coming out of retirement to take over as CEO. Hill started at Nike as an intern in the 1980s, worked his way up the chain to become president of the company's consumer and marketplace division, where he's responsible for leading all commercial and marketing operations for Nike and the Jordan brand. He retired in 2020, and Hill's going to lead Nike's efforts to get back to the fundamentals that have long defined the business. During the pandemic, Nike shifted from its wholesale model to sell directly to consumers. That allowed upstart competitors such as Hoka and On Running to take over its shelf space, take market share. Donahoe acknowledged earlier this year that Nike moved too far away from its wholesale partners. And, I don't know whether we really highlighted what's going on here enough in that piece. We did a little bit of ascribing some problems to Donahoe, but I mean the Journal just says it right in C1, after a series of missteps over his tenure that caused the sneaker giant to lose ground to competitors. So this is an ouster, and it's
yeah, and by the way, our Jessica Golden has done some very good reporting on this. She spoke with David Heath, the retired SVP of sales at Nike and Under Armour, who said the best news out of Nike for many years. I already heard there were many shouts of joy throughout the campus when this hit. This was a big deal to bring back Elliott Hill. He had left when he retired after 32 years and stepped away. He gave up a lot of his compensation that was due coming to him. As a result, they're paying him off one-time restricted shares, a restricted share award with a target grant of $3 million and a cash payment of $4 million to make up for what he lost when he left.
Nike, I always not to take it here, but I always grouped it in with the go woke, you go broke phenomenon. I mean, you have people kneeling for national anthem. They don't do it as much anymore. People wearing socks that have cops as little pigs, and you give the guy millions of dollars for endorsements, and there are a lot of missteps. That's probably not.
No, I think the bigger issue here was.
Well, that people say, they always say it's a bigger issue, but Disney is at $80 a share for some reason. Nike, even Coke has had some issues. I think Quincy finally, you heard, he finally said, I'm not going
to do it. I'm going to be the wilderness.
I haven't, honestly, I mean, I'm just one person, but I haven't bought a Nike product in 4 years because of that. And I go to Dick's Sporting Goods, I will deliberately not buy anything made by Nike. And I'm not the only one in the world like that.
But Mary Dillon will tell you from
Target.
Foot Locker. Mary Dillon from Foot Locker will tell you that they're not their top brand anymore. Right? No. And for that to happen, there are consumers who may not want to buy. There are others who are not going to see it.
There are inventory issues and future orders, and the way they lost the shelf space by during the pandemic, as we just said, by going direct. But there's also cultural issues among certain people that have a lot of crazy stuff going on in their head. But I have not bought and I haven't bought.
Well, you always refer back to Michael Jordan and the comments that
Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yeah,
exactly. And if you're going to go there, just know what you may lose half of the country. But I don't know whether we. We talked about it now, but I don't know if we did. There are. There's myriad issues. It's tough to run. And they're the largest apparel maker in the world. So do you know how many different ways you can screw up when you're trying to decide what to stock, what not to make, what consumer tastes are going to be? Crazy young people have no idea what they're going to buy.
Stock is up sharply on this news. And again, Jess Golden's reporting shows that this was widely hailed within that community at Nike at the headquarters. Stock this morning up by about 5 3/4%. New Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol is taking a softer approach to in-office work than Amazon. According to a transcript of a speech to staff on September 10th that was obtained by Bloomberg, Niccol spoke about the power of having everybody together, but said he wouldn't tell them what days to show up at headquarters or what time. He said, "We're all adults here." He listed the on-site amenities as factors helping to make it easier to work in the office, including a gym, a daycare, and a store, as well as subsidized transit, bike lockers, and shuttles to public transit. Starbucks said that there is no change to the 3-day-per-week in-office policy. That is a contrast from the message of Amazon's Andy Jassy, who recently told corporate employees to begin reporting to the office 5 days a week. Niccol's own arrangement sparked initial backlash because it allows him to live in California and travel to Seattle on the company's corporate jet. Starbucks said Niccol will spend most of his time at the office and visiting the chain stores around the world. We're just talking about off camera.
Right, exactly.
What
it means.
It's not the office that people hate, it's the commute. And I think that's absolutely true. If you're spending an hour to 2 hours a day commuting each way, and you got to see what your life would be like during the pandemic without doing that, and that's a fault of real estate costs and how expensive it is. And in order for a family to be able to live affordably, they have to live a long way away from these inner cities where a lot of these jobs are.
But there's only certain jobs that you can do from home.
Yeah. And that brings back the inequality issues.
Right.
For people who do have to show up 5 days a week.
Things that you can't do on like a computer at home, but and then all of the cultural benefits involved with being with your colleagues and everything.
It's better to be in face with people.
Yeah, that is.
Face to face.
I think Brian might be in Newport Beach, which
you wouldn't leave either.
I have a lot of empathy for why he's motivated to try to have this system. And Los Angeles Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani is now the one and only member of the 50-50 club, hitting 50 home runs, stealing 50 bases in a season, and he can pitch. I don't know if he's doing that anymore, actually. And he accomplished the feat in spectacular fashion, going 6 for 6 at the plate, hitting 3 home runs, stealing 2 bases, and knocking in 10 runs. His $700 million 10-year contract already paying dividends. He is a shoo-in for the National League Most Valuable Player, and the Dodgers clinched a playoff spot with the 20-4 win. 20-4. He had 10 runs batted in.
I looked at it.
Over the feckless, or the Marlins. Not a good year. Yeah.
I looked at it, and apparently a fan took off with that 50th home run ball that he hit.
Again?
They were hoping to get it back.
He's in the stands.
Yeah, he was in the stands.
Didn't run out there like with.
No. I think that somebody was in the stands and took it, and they were hoping to get it back. Last 50, I read, 50. They had not recovered it.
He's something. It should be good. Mets will be in. Looks like at this point. I don't know why I'm excited. I guess because I live here.
And you're wearing an orange tie.
I'll always be a Reds fan. Yeah, that wasn't. That's good. Yeah, I'll say that's what it was for. Jets.
It was amazing. I didn't see the whole thing. I had to wake up this morning to watch
I saw some video this morning that
I watched the first half.
That showed there was a defensive player. Any other quarterback would have thrown an interception, and it's perfect where it was, and it's just another touchdown for.
Can't believe it's the Jets.
Is it possible? Is it possible? You know, they're
2-1 for the season now.
They were called the Amazing Mets. You could
Amazing
say the
Jets,
Amazing
baby.
Jets. Coming up.
2-1. 2-1.
You want me to do it? You want me to endorse them?
No.
Okay.
Nobody wants your endorsement.
I know.
You're the kiss of death.
Tease will be next.
Coming up next on Squawk Pod, less than 50 days to Election Day, Harvard professor Jason Furman is measuring each of our presidential candidates' economic plans against the other. And he says both are crazy, but one, he thinks, is marginally safer for the economy.
Pretty much every independent rack-up of the two says Donald Trump would add much more to the deficit. I total more than $5 trillion from him.
Welcome back to Squawk Pod.
Up and Becky, Q.
President Biden speaking at the Economic Club in Washington, D.C. yesterday.
Fed lowering interest rates isn't a declaration of victory. It's a declaration of progress. It's a signal we've entered a new phase of our economy and our recovery.
Joining us right now to talk about policy ahead of the November election is Jason Furman. He is Harvard Kennedy School professor and former CEA chair. And Jason, let's just talk about what the Fed's move actually does signal, what it indicates, because it's been pretty confusing to be watching this saying, okay, when Chairman Powell came out and said the economy's in great shape, the jobs market is still strong, but we're going to cut 50 basis points. Why do you think that is? Does the Fed see something happening, whether that be in commercial real estate loans, whether it be something in the job market that concerns it? Why cut 50 basis points if everything's great?
Look, I would have cut by 25 basis points. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it was a close call. The cut was 3 steps progress. Inflation's come down a lot. But 1 step moving in the opposite direction in the job market with the unemployment rate up. I don't think the Fed has some secret information about economic weakness we don't have. But they're a little bit nervous about the unemployment rate going up. I'm a little bit nervous about it too, just not quite as nervous as 50 basis points.
I think satisfaction thinking inflation has been tamed is one thing, and we certainly have seen some better numbers and some improvement. But if you look on the horizon at the potential for strikes at the ports, for the strike at Boeing, some other things that could go wrong along the way, that could lead you to think that inflation could come back in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think inflation's running at about 2.5%. And that's why the Fed is still keeping interest rates at a contractionary stance. The loose labor market will continue to put some downward pressure on that inflation. But yeah, there's a risk. In fact, if you look at wage growth right now looks like what you'd see in a 3.5% inflation world. So there are definitely still risks to the soft landing, both from resurgent inflation and from recession. It's just that the balance of those risks have changed, and the inflation one's gone down, the recession one's gone up, so rates should come down.
It just would be pretty disconcerting if the Fed had to turn around and focus more on the inflationary side of the ledger of the dual mandate at this point, rather than watching labor market if something happens in the next few months.
But that's why they've moved so gradually. I mean, that's the nice thing. If they made a mistake and did too much, they just need to not cut at the next meeting or not cut at the meeting after. They're not in a position where they're going to need to reverse this because rates are still contractionary. They're still going to be contractionary for a while. I don't necessarily sure that it's the best way for the Fed to operate, but they operate with this gradualism. So they only move when they're overwhelmingly sure they should move. And even this is still not getting to where you'd want rates to be this minute if you wanted to constantly have them in the right place. It's part of a path that they're going to go gradually on, and they can adjust.
I think that's probably why some people were in the 25 basis point camps, including yourself. It's what you would have done too. Why don't we switch and talk a little bit about the election and what is potentially out there from each of the candidates? You had an op-ed earlier this week where you said basically both these candidates have crazy economic plans that have economists kind of ripping their hair out trying to figure out what to make of this. But you said Kamala Harris is the safer choice. Why don't we start with the economic plans we've seen from each of them so far? What's your favorite part?
My favorite, look, there's things she has that I like. An expanded child tax credit. That's something JD.
No, I'm sorry, for each of them. Why don't we? I was being a little sarcastic. Why don't we talk about the crazy things in both of these plans that drive you nuts first?
Sure. I mean, it's not going to tank our economy, but the idea that you might try to block a Japanese steel company from investing and helping support the growth of American steel production is just completely nuts. Saying tax-free tips, tax-free this, tax-free that, I think is pretty nuts. The idea that price gouging is right now keeping grocery prices higher, and there's something we can do about it, I don't think is understanding the economy. So there's a lot of things out there that, I'm not loving what I'm hearing.
What do you like the most about? Why do you say Harris is the safer plan?
Look, there's three big ones for me, and it's the question of what you want to do and what you're able to do. First, trade. This administration did a bit more tariffs than I would have liked, although there was some theory and argument for them. 10 or 20% across the board tariffs, tariffs on allies like Australia, tariffs on products like ballpoint pens that we don't make. That's just a global trade war in the making. It's something Donald Trump could do all on his own without Congress. So that's number one. Number two, on the budget, I don't think anyone's taking it as seriously as they should, but pretty much every independent rack-up of the two says Donald Trump would add much more to the deficit. I total more than $5 trillion from him and from Harris, depending on what she does, either some deficit reduction or $1.5 trillion of increase. And by the way, if he's elected, he will probably have a Republican Congress and can get it done. Finally, there's the Fed. His threats to the Fed are just awful. I don't think he could pull them off, but I'd rather not take the chance.
Some of those markups include her ability to raise taxes by $5 trillion, and that probably wouldn't happen either, Jason. I read, I don't know, you had a good piece in the Journal. John Paulson.
You can stop there.
Yeah, John Paulson. I could, if he were here, he makes an interesting case for targeted tariffs, and Biden did leave some on. And you're right, ballpoint pens. I don't know about that, but like the defense industry, in general, we average about 2% on imported industrial, a tariff of 2%, and it's just much higher from everyone else. We are definitely
not everyone else. Most of the advanced economies have pretty similar tariffs with us. These are our close allies. We're going to put a 20% tariff.
I don't know about 20, but
Australia,
okay, how would you?
And Canada?
In 2022, we had a record for the trade deficit, 1.2 trillion, and then we had a 1 month record just in July of 103 billion. There is a problem.
But tariffs won't do anything about it. First of all, we'll do tariffs on them, they'll do tariffs on us, plus the exchange rate will adjust. Statistically, there is no relationship whatsoever between the level of tariffs and the trade deficit. What tariffs affect is the volume of trade. So we'll end up with less imports, which hurts our consumers, and we'll end up with less exports, which hurts our workers in those industries. So it just shrinks all of this trade, isn't going to rebalance it.
It must be hard for you because it's neither
to
plan
be in
is,
favor of free trade. That's pretty.
No, I know. But it's almost like there's actually a neo free trade group that are like libertarian. It's very strange. Both sides have some strange hybrid ideas. Now Trump wants to get rid of the salt cap. So I mean, there's crazy stuff going on. And I don't know how many trillions that would be. You'd probably like it. I don't know what Massachusetts
Well, no,
is.
I would keep the SALT cap that was done in the reform. I think the structure of the 2017 reform was actually quite good and thoughtful.
Right, getting rid of all those.
Couldn't afford getting the rates down quite as far as they lowered them.
Well, there's nothing you like on either side at this point, to be totally honest. And I understand we both have our axes to grind, but there's crazy.
But there's nothing quite like tariffs on $4 trillion. Most of the goods we buy.
But just like you say, it's going to be a Republican Congress, so we don't have to worry about Kamala's absolutely bat something crazy stuff with price controls and unrealized gains. I mean, if that was going to pass, and you couldn't say, well, it'll never pass, you'd be hard pressed to try to defend some of those wacko ideas coming from AOC's side.
I don't like her price proposal. I think it's sort of like what most states
unrealized
do,
gains,
where it's in emergencies.
Would you raise corporate taxes?
I might like a bit more than you and most of your viewers, but we can talk about that another time.
All right, let's do that. Go back in that little pod or whatever you were in. Then I can just focus
I'm in a hotel now.
Are you really?
I thought you were.
In Canada, where they're just terrified about the tariffs that Donald Trump wants to do on them.
Jason, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you again soon.
Next on Squawk Pod, the newest shark on Shark Tank. The founder of Kind Snacks, Daniel Lubetzky. He's a big investor now, but he says he started just like regular founders around the world.
I was a one-person operation in the windowless basement of my building, right across from the trash compactor.
How he went from that to the tank, and what he looks for in a pitch, right after this. You're listening to Squawk Pod from CNBC. Here's Becky Quick.
All right, there's a new shark circling. Kind Snacks founder Daniel Lubetzky is going to be joining the Shark Tank panel for season 16. Longtime shark Mark Cuban is leaving the show. Some of Daniel's most notable investments on Shark Tank include Yellow Leaf Hammocks, as well as deals with Fit Fight, Tandem Surf, and HumViewer. And he can tell us about what all of these are. Joining us right now is Daniel Lubetzky himself. Of course, he's the Kind Snacks founder and Camino Partners founder. Daniel, thank you for being here. First of all, why jump into this tank? What is it about Shark Tank? What do you want to do there?
Shark Tank is a magical, very, very unique show already going into 16th season, 5-time Emmy Award winner that brings together all generations. Like, I watch it with my kids and I use it as an opportunity to teach them a little bit about business. We pause and we discuss valuations. We discuss what the entrepreneur is doing right and wrong. It's a really entertaining. They found the right magic to keep people really, really entertained while teaching them about entrepreneurship and the American spirit and the incredible opportunities that our country affords us all.
Yeah, I watch it with my kids too. It is an incredible teacher of things that probably they're not learning in the school system all that often. You're so well known for Kind because you took a company from 0 to 5 billion and you did it with just an investment of $5 million. How did you do it? What did you learn along the way that you can bring to Shark Tank?
I think what's interesting on my experience that I can bring to Shark Tank is just the success of Kind, but also the failures before it. I had 10 years, Becky, where I was like making 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward with my first company, Peaceworks. And all of the mistakes I drew then, I drew the lessons to then get it right for Kind and just describe what happened then. And so I think I can bring to the entrepreneurs every step of the way from when I was a one-person operation in the windowless basement of my building, right across from the trash compactor. There was like all these noises and smells, all the way to building, 5, 10 team members, 10, 20, 50, 100, 400, 500, billions of dollars in revenues. And it's, in my experience, the mistakes, as long as you're self-reflective, are as important as the successes because they teach you how to calibrate and pivot.
Yeah, a lot of the pitches that come are from people who are at just that point. Maybe they're 3 people, maybe they're 5 people. These are very small operations that a lot of times have great ideas. What do you look for in those pitches that makes you decide, okay, this is somebody I want to put my money on versus, no, I think I'm going to pass on this one?
I call it the 3 It's. First, I used to, when I started investing, just looking for grit, because I want them to be fighting, but that's what I used to have in the Peaceworks years, but I didn't have any of the wit. So I would just try to go through the walls, but there was a window or a door right next to it that if you were creative, you'd be able to get through. So you need to have the creativity to level the playing field by really, really outwitting your competitors and the large giants. And so you need the grit, the wit, and then there has to be a fit. Like the marketplace has to want the product. Somebody needs to really appreciate your unique selling proposition. And if that exists, then that's kind of what I'm looking for.
What kind of trends are you seeing right now that you think are hot, that are investing trends that you want to be on top of?
Well, through Shark Tank, we invest very early stage, but through Camino Partners, we invest much later stage, $20 million to $100 million investments. And we're doing a lot in the restaurant space. I've been here before to talk about Cava. We're very early investors there. I think we're just at the very beginning of that journey. That's an extraordinary CEO and brand and journey. So we do a lot of restaurant. I think people are still coveting health and wellness like the same way that we did with Kind, where we're giving people something that's healthy, but also tasty, wholesome, and convenient. I think there's still an untapped potential to deliver solutions in the restaurant and CPG space there. And then in AI and technology, the disruption that I'm witnessing is greater than anything in my lifetime. And I think a lot of us also in society are very shaken up. This is called the builders movement, because we're really fed up with all the people creating troubles and rather than coming up with solutions, and all the forces contributing to toxic polarization. We're trying really, really hard to elevate problem solvers. You talked about in schools, but also in our corporations, to bring a builder's mindset with creativity, curiosity, compassion, and courage to actually learn and teach how to navigate differences and create value, build bridges, build jobs, build opportunities.
That's great. Daniel, very quickly, the Fed cutting rates by 50 basis points. What does that mean for the entrepreneurs that you're looking at on Shark Tank? What does it mean for businesses that are very small businesses that at this point that are hoping to become bigger?
My advice to small businesses is to not get distracted by that. For the big boys like you guys, it matters. For the guys starting out, whether you're one person or 500 people, you can break through all of that. Kind grew triple digits from its day that it was born for the first 10 years, cash flow positively and profitably. And that included going through the financial crisis, 2007, 8, 9, 10. Every year we would go triple digits. I didn't even understand what was going on. We're just holding on to the rocket ship. But if you have a good product, a good culture, a good team that you're empowering and giving them ownership, nothing can stop you, not even inflation. Not to say that it's not super bad for the economy, but for the entrepreneurs, for the people at those junctures, just focus on your product and your value proposition.
Well, Daniel, we are excited to see you as a permanent shark in the tank, and we hope to have you back here on Squawk again soon.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you so much.
And that's the pod for today and for the week. Thank goodness it's Friday. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin, weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. This podcast is produced by me, Katie Kramer, and Cameron Costa with the help of the talented Squawk Box team. Every day, we bring you the best of our morning TV show in an easy-to-listen-to podcast version, plus a little extra. Stay tuned to your Squawk Pod feed this weekend for some bonus content. We are here for you, always. Have a great weekend.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.